Alf was the firstborn, the pride of the family. Everyone in Ursfell talked about his strength, his courage. Mullerdale folk are strong, everyone knows that, but Alf was special. Elf-touched, they call people like that. Everyone knew that Alf was destined for something great. Derwin, disbelieving at first, then rapped. The fire died down, and he did not notice. Coo grunted and snuffled, and the boy absently petted the dog, quieting him. Desperate not to miss a thing, as if every word that dropped from Olva's lips was a glittering diamond. Frozen glimpses of a part of the saga he had never heard before. And then one day, he was gone. He walked off down the road, and they didn't see him again for months. He came back a few times, in the company of strange folk, sellswords and tomb robbers, but he never stayed for long. He'd bring money sometimes, dropping a bag of coins onto the table with a grunt. Old coins sometimes, looted from a tomb, or new ones from mercenary work or tawny prizes. More money than their father could make in a year. Olva had been too young to understand the growing gulf between Alf's life and theirs, but hindsight had taught her to interpret the signs. The way pride warred with shame on her father's face, to be so eclipsed by his son. The way Alf would grow restless after only a few days, as the road called to him. The bad years came. The world beyond the village became colder. There were alehouse tales of raids on the coast, of wars being fought far away in dwarflands and across the seas. But there were always alehouse tales, and the cold couldn't penetrate the walls of their little house. Not that first year. But the war drew closer and closer. What began as rumours became terribly real. Longboats full of barbarian Wilder crossed the sea and invaded Elskoast. Wilder raiders burned Highfield. Wilder and worse things. The Wilder might be savages who worshipped the witch elves as gods, but at least they were human. That winter brought monsters. Now the family huddled together for comfort, flinching whenever the wind howled or when rats scratched at the walls. There were dreadworms riding on the wind, people said, and Wilder in all the woods now. The war was at their door, and the world changed. Then Alf came back, for the last time. Stumbling into the village, bloodied and battered, exhausted beyond endurance. Alf and his 8 friends. 9? The 9 were here, gasped Derwin, unable to stay silent. 8 friends hiding from their pursuers. Olva was 15 at the time, younger than Derwin was now. Old enough to hide at the back of the room and listen, as Alf spoke of a battle up on the high moor, of dreadful witch elves out of the far north. They'd won some desperate victory, but were now on the run, chased by the forces of Lord Bone. They had nowhere else to hide. That night was the first time Olva had heard the name Necrad. There was no room in that little house for such a band. One of Alf's companions was a genuine princess of Elvendom, and another, the company's wizard, was badly wounded and needed rest in a proper bed. To make space, Olva and her brothers were sent to sleep in the shed with the animals. Alf kept watch that night, sitting cross-legged in the doorway, watching the woods. That was Olva's last real memory of her oldest brother. Alf standing guard over them, his big shoulders hunched against the cold wind. The expression on his face as he scraped a whetstone against the edge of his sword, like the look she'd seen on her husband Galwyn's face when tending to their newborn. She'd fallen asleep that night, feeling safe, for the first time in months, now that Alf was back. But he hadn't stayed. Alf and the rest of his company had left the next morning, going back to the war, back to their quest. That was the last time she'd seen her brother.